Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. This is Mitch Spinell flying solo this week as Mitchell Balla is still recovering from a recent surgery. However, he will be back very soon. I am very excited to join you guys here as I will be talking for the next hour or so about what's going on in the sporting world. We also have a very special guest coming up within this episode, but for right now, I want to remind you guys that you can follow us on all of our podcasting platforms on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts, are audio only. Spotify, Anchor, and here on YouTube, obviously, we are audio and video. So be sure to check out those. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell when you watch us here on YouTube on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show channel. We also are on our website, bigtimesportsohio.com. You can find our latest articles, videos there. I've been posting a lot of articles lately, as there's been a lot of action here in Tuscarawas County and beyond. We also have, obviously, our Twitter page, BTS Ohio. You can also find on Facebook and Instagram, Big Time Sports Ohio. You can find a number of posts there. And, of course, follow me on my social platforms at Mitch Spinell, and follow Mitchell Balla everywhere he is at Mitchell Balla, Balla. So we start off now with what we usually do here on the first segments of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show, which is high school talk. High school talk has been really heating up, especially when we've been seeing these teams go down to the wire here as the winter season is coming to near playoff time. We're seeing some teams wrap up their regular season schedules. We've seen a number of great performances this past week from a number of good teams, including dual victories from a school that I'll get to in a second. But I want to start off with a victory in which New Philadelphia was able to grab earlier this week over John Glenn, a top performance by Carter Vandal, who had 22 points on the game, as New Philadelphia won 57-43 in a home matchup. I ended up writing accidentally at first that it was a road game. It was not, but New Philadelphia gets the victory over the John Glenn Muskies. And I'll try to get the screen shared here. I've been trying to get this into the show more since I did it last week when, if you watch that episode, Mitchell Balla and I went over our top selections for the upcoming Baseball Hall of Fame vote that is supposed to be announced within this next week. But that kind of sprawled out into the Hall of Famers that we would put in there, plus a class that doesn't quite hold up to the candidates that are not quite in the Hall of Fame yet, such as Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Pete Rose. We even went as far back as Shoeless Joe Jackson. So that was an interesting conversation. You can check that out from last week's episode or last Monday's episode, excuse me. And we're looking here now at a performance by Vandal that led New Philadelphia to this victory over John Glenn that helped them go to 9-3 on the season. New Philadelphia has had a very competitive streak this year. I know they've dropped a couple of games, but they had a great victory earlier this season over rival Dover, and I'm very fascinated to see where they might go come tournament time, especially with a first-year head coach. Now, after Vandal in that game was Owen Miller, who pitched in 9 points for the Quakers, while Owen Schellis, Colton Slaughter, and Michael Vickers each scored 8 points. Now, Nathan Walker led the Muskies with 12 points for the game, but New Philadelphia was able to secure the victory. Around this time, too, we also have had Dover winning a road matchup in Alliance against the Aviators that boosted them to 12-2 for the season. That was the second game in a row where Dover was able to post a significant rally. Earlier in the season, they were down 12 points to Hudson High School before winning in overtime 49-46. This time we have the Tornadoes winning 45-40 against Alliance, even though the Tornadoes were down 9 points in the third quarter. Now, the score was pretty spread out for the Tornadoes. Carter Grove was the leader with 10 points on the game. Alliance's Diego Allen and J.R. Jackson scored 8 points, while Allen totaled 8 rebounds and 2 blocks. So that was a solid performance by the Tornadoes there, who again are one of the top teams in Tuscarawas County. Now I'll bring myself back up on the screen there. So we have that. We also have in the Inter Valley Conference right now, things really heating up. According to last check on the boys' side of things, we have Garaway in the lead in the IVC South at 11-1, 6-1. on the year in IVC play, and the Malvern Hornets up to 12-1, 7-0. A very, very good team in Malvern right now. Could be very, very solid come playoff time, especially we'll see here coming up soon their matchup against the Strasburg Tigers, who were able to grab another victory the other night over Kidron Central Christian. There were 5 players for Strasburg in double figures for that game. Now, Joe Fisher had 19 points for the contest. You also had Cole Hutchinson, Gage Moore, and Matthew Stevens, who scored 15 points for the Tigers, who are now 12-3 overall on the season after a non-conference victory. And Jake Ryan was able to score 14 points for the game. That one was 81-66, by the way, one of the highest scoring affairs so far this season for first-year coach Ron Miller's squad. Also in the IVC, we saw Tusky Valley on the boys' side pick up an IVC South win over Ridgewood, 42-28. John Leffler had 16 points and 7 rebounds in that one. There was also the case of Garaway moving to 11-1 after a victory at West Holmes. Alexander Roden, the Roden twins, Alex and Brady, one of the top duos in the IVC. 16 points for Alexander, 11 points for Brady. Drew Mullet and Jarrett Wallach each had 8 points. So a very, very good team in that respect. The only loss of season that Garaway's had, that one blemish on their record, to the Claymont Mustangs earlier in this season. Now, on the girls' side, Strasburg's doing a little bit better than their guy counterparts, but it's because that IVC North and the boys' side is stacked. The north side for the girls is between Strasburg and Tuscarora Central Catholic right now. Strasburg is 15-1 on this season after securing a victory last night over the East Canton Hornets. It was an interesting game because the game was 6-4 after the opening period. Strasburg had taken the lead. The Tigers did not allow a point in the second half of this game. The Hornets scored 4 more points in the second quarter, and the Tigers outscored them 21-0, which is a very, very unbelievable occurrence in area basketball. But the Tigers are up to 15-1. Hornets fall to 4-11 on the year. We also have, like I said, the Saints are currently, as I check the standings here, 12-3 on the season, 7-1 overall. Now, Malvern had a bit of a tough break last night as the Buckeye Trail Warriors were able to secure an IVC North victory. 46-44 was the final. Josie Creighton had 13 points and 9 rebounds to lead the Warrior girls, while Maddie Powers led the Hornets with 21 points. Powers, one of the top scorers in all of the IVC. Alyssa Boney also had 10 rebounds for the Hornets. That was a team high, but Malvern dropping to 9-6 overall, 6-3 in the IVC North, which could put a damper on their IVC North championship chances. We'll have to see where it goes throughout the rest of the season. Some stuff also going on the north side of our area in Stark County, where there was a game last night between, if I get it here, McKinley and Lake, in which McKinley dropped 22 forced 22 turnovers on the Blue Streaks and won 51-35. You had Paris Stokes scoring 17 points on the game. Maya Taylor and Kalani Foster, 12 points, 10 points, respectively. You also had Serenity Johnson scoring 13 points and 10 boards and a double-double outing for Lake, who drops to 10-5 on the year, 4-4 in Federal League play. The Bulldogs just ahead at 11-4, 7-2 in the Federal League. So the Bulldog girls, one of the top teams in the area so far this year. We also saw Claymont win last night over Ridgewood in a 41-25 final. Bailey Edelman and Lauren Doan each had 12 points to lead the Mustangs, who jumped back up over 500 at 9-8 overall, 5-3 in the South, while Ridgewood drops below 500 at 7-8. And finally, we had a heck of a performance the other night from the Tusky Valley Trojans, who remain unbeaten in IVC South play after beating Garaway 40-38 out in Zorville. It was Leah Borkwin who only had 4 points on the game, and she had 1 shot made from the field, but that shot was the difference maker. With just a few seconds to spare, Borkwin drilled a layup that was ruled just getting off before the buzzer sounded. I knew there was some talk between some area people that it may not have been an actual shot. The video is on Twitter, and if I can find the video very soon, I'll make sure to post it up. But Leah Borkwin did have the game-winning shot for the Trojans, who ended up winning. They are now 12-2 overall, 8-0 in the IVC South. Kaylee Norris led the way with 13 points. Caden Stutz had 12 points. The Pirates dropped to 9-6 for the year, 4-5 in the South. Kennedy Miller, 11 points. Riley Miller, 10-point, 6-assist performance. Megan Schwartz also had 9 points, and Garraway went into that game having won 4 games in a row. That streak is now done. So that is really a lot of what we've been seeing in the area so far as we are winding down the regular season, and playoff time is coming very soon. When we come back from this break, we'll be going over some greater area stuff, including the state of Ohio and nationwide. We have the upcoming NFL playoffs. We got some Cavs talk. We'll be back right after these quick messages. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
Buying a home has never been so affordable with record low interest rates. Hartzler's Quality Housing is ready to put over 40 years of experience to work for you. Family owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's has a wide selection of model homes on site with a knowledgeable team to help make your new home a reality. Open 6 days a week. Visit them off I-77 in Dover or online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
Vive Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vive Auto Sales.
And we're back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell flying solo for this week. We go now over to segment number 2, where I want to go over some football stuff because we cover football a lot on this show. This past week, we went over our NFL pick'ems for the divisional round, which you can watch back. But this is some conversations in here. Obviously, we've been going through not just Black Monday in the NFL from this past week since the regular season is done. It's basically been like black 2.5 weeks now, as we've been seeing a number of coaching shifts here in the NFL. Now, one positive we did see, one hiring we did see, the first one of the offseason was the Browns finding a new defensive coordinator in one Jim Schwartz. We covered this on the last episode. We saw Schwartz. It was reported at the time by multiple sources that he would become the new DC. And now the Browns have officially introduced him. They had a press conference on Wednesday in which Schwartz talked about some of his plans in overseeing a defense now that really needs a boost after having some really, really tough breaks in the last year of Joe Woods' 3-year run. I even had the one tweet from John Costco, who is a football coverer. The Browns had 47 busted coverages in the NFL under former DC Joe Woods from the 2020 season, all the way to 2022. That was the most in the league. From 2016 to 2020, over 5 seasons in the league, I believe, the Eagles had 40 busted coverages under Jim Schwartz. That was the 5th fewest in the NFL. You also see a number of rates there comparing Schwartz to Woods. And I don't personally love to play the comparison game, because I at least think that Joe Woods tried to make the defense work. And there were some flashes because of the talent that you saw from the Browns in those 3 years. But when you're giving up 75-yard touchdown passes in the open to the Jets to allow them to get back into a 13-point game with 2 minutes left, when you're not adjusting to the Atlanta Falcons running the ball over a dozen times in a row, when you're dealing with, this one commenter here saying the Chargers game where the offense scored 40 plus points and lost. I believe that was during the Baker Mayfield 2021 season, that it wasn't a great look. And Jim Schwartz is a guy that can bring some good to this defense. He's brought good to a number of defensive stops, including his in Tennessee. Then he was the head coach in Detroit, in Buffalo for one season, and of course winning the Super Bowl over those years with the Philadelphia Eagles for Coach Doug Peterson's squads. So now I'm curious as to what the Browns will be able to do. I mean, the main focus right now is on defensive tackle. I mentioned in the last episode, every stop that Jim Schwartz has had, a defensive tackle has been able to at least make one Pro Bowl or one All-Pro team. I believe All-Pro first team, if I'm not mistaken. And it wasn't a great year 2022 for the defensive tackles for the Browns. Jordan Elliott and Taven Bryan were probably your two best performers in these roles. Elliott finished with 36 tackles on the year, 5 of them for loss, 2 sacks. Bryan had 3 sacks, which was second on the team to Myles Garrett's 16. So Myles Garrett obviously is still the focus of the Browns defense, despite focusing over on the defensive end side. But if you can work Schwartz's system to Myles's benefit, he can remain one of the scariest pass rushers in the NFL and one of the scariest guys to see if you're a quarterback over the line. So it's going to be interesting. I hope Schwartz will fit in well with this team. I hope that it can take some weight off of Kevin Stefanski's shoulders to be able to just focus on finding the right play calling that can make that Browns offense much better than it was this past year. Now, as for the other coaching maneuvers that we've been seeing around the league, this one's crazy to me. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers announcing today that they've not only moved on from offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, who was a part of the Super Bowl winning team from 2 years ago. They've also gotten rid of wide receivers coach Kevin Garver, specialist coach Chris Boniol, offensive quality control coach Jeff Castle, Lori Locust, assistant defensive line coach, running backs coach Todd McNair. A number of coaches in the next sentence saying that they'll be retiring. So Todd Bowles is going to have one heck of an offseason to try and recoup some of these people on a staff that had a bit of a tough year, even with Tom Brady still at the helm. Brady maybe had his most average season in years, just nowhere near the heights of what he was even able to do last season when he led the league in passing. And who even knows if Brady's going to be on the team coming this next year, if we might see him in San Francisco, maybe in Vegas. I don't know. Maybe we won't see him on a field next year. But Tampa Bay just having a rough go of it after getting bounced by the Cowboys in the wild card round. It might be that's the case too. I've seen with the Cowboys winning that wild card game the way they did, it's like, hey, kudos to them. They earned it. But there's just something about losing to the Cowboys in this era where the Cowboys are just accustomed to crazy playoff losses. We saw it last year against San Francisco. It really is just kind of a, oh, we let these guys win. Now, granted, Dak Prescott, that was his second playoff win. I believe he won a few years ago. Can't remember exactly who it was against, but then I knew that the only thing I know about that run was that Dallas ended up losing the next game in the divisional round to the Los Angeles Rams. And I'm just going to keep talking until I can look this whole thing up just to waste some time here. I like to be as transparent as I can be with you guys. List of Dallas Cowboys seasons. You go into that. That was the year they beat the Seahawks in the wild card round, 2018, when they won the NFC East, then lost to the Rams. That's something else. The Rams made the NFC title game that year. Anyway, we now go over to a discussion that I have on the NFL where I got an article here from Yahoo Sports, and I'll pull this one up. It's in regards to the upcoming divisional round, but really just about the entire playoffs in general. I hope I get this name right. Pete Truskowski wrote an article regarding NFL betting, ranking each potential Super Bowl matchup from least likely to most likely. I wanted to take a look at these for myself, and I also wanted to take a look at what Super Bowl matchups that we can currently have at this moment with the remaining 8 teams, or 8 teams that you would want to see in the Super Bowl, or who I would want to see in the Super Bowl. It says here at BetMGM, you can currently bet on which 2 teams you think will make the game. So there's that. That's a whole other thing too, now that, especially with sports betting being legal in Ohio. So these are the potential Super Bowl matchups that we have here as I try to find a way to expand my screen. First off, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars up against the New York Giants, 150-1. The Jaguars and the Giants obviously had probably the 2 most surprising wins of the weekend, especially with the way Jacksonville was able to win coming back against the Chargers, and the Giants were able to stump a 13-4 Minnesota Vikings team. It says here, this round, both teams are underdogs getting over a touchdown. If either team survives this weekend, it'll once again be a sizable underdog in the conference championship, 150-1 odds. This matchup is very likely not happening. I can't say for sure it's not going to be, because anything can happen, but you'd be very hard pressed to go up against Patrick Mahomes if you're Jacksonville and the Chiefs, and then take on the winner of a Bills-Bengals game. That Bills-Bengals game, whoever wins that's going to be so supercharged after being able to hopefully get the full game in. And then the Giants, it's like, yeah, the Giants are facing off against a division rival. They haven't looked great in the last month, so maybe there could be a victory there, but then you have to take on it possibly either another division rival or the hottest team in the NFL, who's running on a seventh round pick at quarterback, and he looks fantastic. So I think this one's very unlikely. I don't really need to see it at this rate. I would like to see Daniel Jones or Trevor Lawrence in Super Bowls in the future at some point. These are very likable, easy to root for teams right now. I'll give you that. So the number 15, poor Jacksonville. We have the Jaguars going up against the Cowboys, 66-1 odds. Jacksonville is an 8.5 underdog going up this week, and then Dallas is a 3.5 underdog against San Francisco, which I can understand. I mean, it's in San Francisco. Dallas still would need to prove a little bit more to take on a team like the Niners, who have won 11 games in a row. Dallas versus Jacksonville would be kind of an interesting one. It could be Doug Peterson versus Dallas, essentially. That's the rooting interest, and Trevor Lawrence versus Dak Prescott as well. But I'd be hard pressed to find this one. I think I'm still in that mix where you'd be hard pressed for me to say Dallas will make the Super Bowl for sure, because I said in the last podcast, I think San Francisco's the far and away favorite to win the NFC. But I'm hoping for a good game this weekend between Dallas and San Francisco. I hope we get another one of those playoff classics that we have here as I take a sip of rocks. Not a sponsor. We also have here the Bengals going up against the Giants. So the Bengals are actually 5.5 point favorites going into the weekend in Buffalo, which, in Buffalo, that's a really tough place to win. I do agree with this one, though. Cincinnati is a tough road to the Super Bowl, but it is a better chance of getting there than the Giants, who need to defeat, like I said, defeat Philly in Philly, and then either San Francisco in San Francisco or Dallas. I think I'd still be in Dallas. That would be such a hard thing to do. But we saw what Eli Manning did in those 2 Super Bowl runs with the Giants, having to win multiple games on the road in order to get to the big one. Odds of that game 60-1. That could kind of be interesting, but I don't think that's nobody's favorite matchup except for Bengals and Giants fans because it involves them. Now this is interesting. A rematch of what, Super Bowl 25? The Bills and the Giants. I mean, that would be one where, first of all, New York media and everyone in there would be just insufferable for the 2 weeks that we would have to watch them get into there. Look, I'm so a little surprised by this. Giants are 11-1 to win the NFC. I thought it'd be more. And then Buffalo is obviously the favorite to beat Cincinnati this week. I'd be fascinated by it. I'd be fascinated if the Bills could end up winning this game against the Giants and then, be able to bring Scott Norwood to the championship parade. But I don't know. 35-1. It's interesting, and it's kind of like it could be likely, but I don't think so. This next game would be like this game would be like the Georgia TCU game at halftime. Chiefs versus the Giants. Like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do that one. I've already seen Pat Mahomes win a Super Bowl. I've already seen him in 2. I've kind of got my fill for a little bit. I think he maybe needs to go on a Tom Brady gap where, Tom Brady between his 3rd Super Bowl and his 4th Super Bowl, I believe was like a decade, which is crazy to think about. But I think he needs to get that out of the way first in order to really become the legend if he can win a couple of Super Bowls late in his career. Granted, I don't know if he's necessarily going to play as long as Tom Brady has, which is unbelievable. So there's that, 30-1. But I think the Chiefs would manhandle the Giants pretty easily in that sort of game, unless the Giants can have a really good running system, which they do have in Saquon and Speed Jones. We also have the Jaguars against the 49ers. This one would be I think it's the same thing. It's a blowout, 28-1. It just wouldn't be one that I'd be personally fascinated with unless San Francisco, dropped the ball a little bit. And that would be their 3rd straight Super Bowl loss. San Francisco, for a time, was undefeated in Super Bowls, guys. Remember this. Say what you want about the Steelers and say what you want about the Cowboys, but by the turn of the 21st century, San Francisco was 5-0. They were perfect in Super Bowls. They were the gold standard. And then 2012, you end up losing to the Ravens. A couple years ago, you lose to the Chiefs, and it's like, I don't know if this is I think that's a franchise that needs to reestablish how great of a franchise that is. But I think they could easily do it against Jacksonville, with all due respect. Jaguars versus the Eagles at number 10. That game, along with the last game, is 28-1 odds. Yeah, it would be. I wonder if this would be a closer game than the one against San Francisco. Both teams going off at plus 160 odds to win the NFC. So it's Eagles and San Francisco. I know those 2 teams seem interchangeable, but I would say San Francisco would be more dominant in a game like this, especially with the way they played compared to how Philadelphia kind of skeeted off in the last month. Skeeted off, is that a term? I just made it up. I guess it is now. 28-1. So that's number 10. I guess this one's tied for number 10 too, since this is 22-1, or maybe they just forgot to make it number 9. Cincinnati Bengals versus Dallas Cowboys. It's an interesting one. It's interesting just for the 2 teams. I mean, you had Cincinnati, who had a couple of losses in the 80s or early 90s in the Super Bowl, and then Dallas, who was obviously able to win a couple of them in the 90s. It's like right here, both teams are talented. It wouldn't be surprising to make a run, but both teams have the odds stacked against them, and it's not even their fault, really. It's not like these are just like Tampa Bay, 8 and 9 teams just snuck into the playoffs and somehow scored a victory. These are good teams, but they had just so many great teams this year in both conferences that it's very hard to make even the conference championship at this rate, let alone the big game out in a couple of weeks. And then we have number 8, Bills versus Cowboys. The whole buildup would be about the 2 back-to-back wins that Dallas had in 92 and 93. Talk about Thurman Thomas. Was that losing his helmet? I think losing his helmet was against Washington. Against Thurman Thomas losing helmet. I know I'm getting off track here, but I got to look this up here. Yeah, I think that was against. No, yeah, it was Kenneth Davis. No, I know all the older people that are listening to this podcast are now being like, "It's so obvious, you dope." Did I miss it here? I'm trying to like look through all the things here. Here, I'm just gonna click on another thing. Losing his helmet. Super Bowl XXVI. Super Bowl XXVI was it was Washington and Buffalo. So yeah, there you go. That took too long. Bills versus Cowboys would be a fun one. It's funny that I think Bills would be the sizable favorite in that one compared to the other two. So then we have the Chiefs going up against the Cowboys. That'd be a gunslinging Super Bowl if I've ever seen one. But I still think Kansas City would be able to win that. Bills versus Cowboys, by the way, was 14-1 odds. This one's 13-1. So yeah, Dallas just isn't that attractive of a Super Bowl candidate yet. If they make that conference championship game, and let's say the Giants are able to beat Philadelphia, then you're a favorite. If not, then Philadelphia is still the favorite. But who knows? I mean, Dallas was able to beat them earlier this season. You got split. So I don't know. Number 6, excuse me, 10-1 odds. Bengals and 49ers. This was the rematch of the iconic Super Bowl where Joe Montana saw John Candy in the crowd and led the team on a game-winning drive. This would be a fascinating one for me to watch. You got Brock Purdy going up against Joe Burrow, maybe two of the most like scot-free, not scot-free. What's that term for like when you have like blemish-free quarterbacks in the league? Like you really can't say anything bad about them other than you don't like when their team beats yours. I mean, Brock Purdy is kind of just like a fun story over the last couple of weeks, and Joe Burrow has established himself as a starter over the years. Bengals and Niners. You also have the wide receivers for both teams as well, the running game especially, and Kyle Shanahan versus Zach Taylor. I mean, I would expect Shanahan to be able to outcoach him, but Taylor's done a couple of things in the last couple of weeks that I've been like, okay, I can see where you're going with that. And he's made one more Super Bowl than you or I have. So there you go. Number 6. Number 5, Bengals versus Eagles. It's interesting. 10-1. Yeah, I could see Bengals and Eagles having a good matchup there. I think that this one would go to Philadelphia in terms of the slight edge, even though the Bengals do have that Super Bowl experience from last season. So yeah, that's number 5. Number 4, you have the Bills up against the 49ers. That would be a very interesting first time matchup in the Super Bowl. Those two teams have never played each other in the Super Bowl. And the Bills have been the favorite so far this year, and I can't remember if I picked them exactly to win in my preseason predictions, which you can watch here on YouTube and the podcast platforms. But I don't know. It's just one where I'm like, eh. Number 3, Chiefs versus the Eagles. This is probably the one where if you had told somebody by like week 14 or 15, this would be the matchup, they'd be like, yeah, makes sense to me. Because you got the number 1s versus the number 1s. They got Chiefs as the overall favorite. Philadelphia could be a good matchup, but let's take a look at these number 2. And I'm already not liking number 1. I do, but I don't. Number 2, Bills versus the Eagles. I like this sentence right here. If we get a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl, those two fan bases might put civilization in peril for the 2 weeks leading up to and immediately following the game. You know what? That's my number 1. That's my number 1 matchup. Let's get these two fan bases so riled up, so emotional, so aggressive that they could take down an entire empire if they wanted to. Not the empire, the America, but like just saying, like if there was a fictional empire that we could make up and just put on a field and have a bunch of guys in Bills and Eagles jerseys like running at them with coolers and giant white tables and chairs and snowballs, snowballs filled with ice. That would be a fun one. That would be a really fun one, and I'd like to see where that goes. Odds plus 600 along with number 3 and number 4. And then number 1, the most likely Super Bowl matchup according to betting odds, and it would be a rematch of the Super Bowl. See, my thing is with Super Bowls, I like it when part of what I like about the Super Bowl is that it's only one game. It's like the winner take all. You earn your right to get back there or to get there. And when you have teams that are able to get back, it's great for them. But I like it when we get it in back-to-back years and it's the same teams. If you're going to take a couple of years off, I'd be kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if that's the one I need to see again. Like if you had gotten Bengals versus Rams last year, it could have been an interesting game. I mean, obviously the Rams are not up to par to have the same success as last year with injuries and poor play and all that. I think the last repeat matchup we've had in the Super Bowl was those Bills and Cowboys games from 92 and 93. And I'm trying to go through all the games in my mind. Was there 2 straight Cowboys Steelers games from the 70s? I would have to look that one up, but I would be fascinating for me to take a look at where or how many repeat Super Bowls we've gotten. Either way, Chiefs versus Niners, it would be objectively, I think, better than the first time because San Francisco is much more established. You had them going on this amazing run, looking as dominant as they possibly can be, and you would have them play against some very good teams to get there. Now, if you're Kansas City, you have to either beat Buffalo or Cincinnati to get there, and that is well earned, no matter if you're playing at Arrowhead or not. And this is, by the way, with the disclaimer that you need to beat Jacksonville this week, who prove that they're not going to just give up, roll over probably, unless you probably drop like 45 points on them in the first half. But I like this last sentence. I don't think any neutral observer would complain about the Super Bowl matchup, and I just did. I wouldn't say I'm not saying I wouldn't like that. It would kind of be like, okay, that's good. That's a good one. Those are 2 good teams with 2 good coaches, 2 good quarterbacks. I mean, as far as this year goes, and yeah, I mean, it's either going to be Kansas City reaffirming that this is going to be a dynasty to stay, or San Francisco reclaims some of its past glory. So, what is your personal favorite for a Super Bowl matchup this year? I would personally like either Bills versus Eagles. I like maybe something like Bengals 49ers would be another good one too. That's another thing I should establish too. If there's been enough time off since these 2 teams have played in a Super Bowl, I'm fine with that. Like if we got Bengals and Niners again, I'd be fine with that. If we got like, I don't know, another Steelers Cowboys game, I'd be like, all right, that's a good one. If we got something like, I don't know, Packers and the Raiders again, like the first Super Bowl. No, Packers and Raiders first Super Bowl. Packers and Chiefs, excuse me. That'd be an interesting one. But when it's only a couple of years distance, like I don't really need to see like an Eagles Patriots Super Bowl again. I don't need to really see Bucks go up against the Chiefs. I'm like, give me somebody else. Give us some variety. Those ones I like though. Bengals and Niners are number 2, and Bills versus Eagles is my number 1. But what is your number 1 or number 2? Let me know in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or we'll probably put out a question here on Anchor and Spotify. And in the meantime, we'll go into break here. We'll now go into segment 3 as I stop the sharing there. We'll be back right after these quick messages.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
You asked for it and we listened. Buckeye Career Center is now offering Certified Nail Technician as an adult education program. This 216-hour course begins in November and will run Tuesday through Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Learn manicures, pedicures, infection control, salon operations, and more. Other part-time certification courses starting this fall include phlebotomy and welding. Call 330-339-2288 to register or visit BuckeyeCareerCenter.org for more information.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
And we welcome you back here to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. We're going into segment 3 really quick, though. Before we go into segment 3, I did forget to mention one coaching change that occurred earlier today on Thursday. Greg Roman has decided to step down as the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator on Thursday. Now, this was after the Ravens wild card weekend loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. There was a lot of frustration, I do remember, on social media and a couple of other outlets in regards to Baltimore's play calling and the offensive system in which they were running against the Bengals. Obviously, not having Lamar Jackson for the rest of the season did not help. But yeah, you even get the report here that from Rappaport and multiple reports as well. John Harbaugh said it clearly in a press conference on Thursday. Lamar Jackson is our quarterback. He's a 200% chance he'll stay. He'll also be involved in the offensive coordinator hiring process. And you might look at that and be like, oh, okay. But I mean, I could see other teams getting their offensive guys involved. Heck, I mean, there was talk of Myles Garrett potentially being involved with what was going on with the defensive coordinator search for the Browns. I get some notifications there. But I don't know. The Ravens will find somebody. They'll try to work out these Lamar Jackson negotiation talks this offseason. I don't expect him to leave Baltimore. I thought if anything, they might franchise tag him for this year. They'll likely get a contract going, even though Lamar's wants of fully guaranteed money are made tricky for the Ravens front office. I mean, that whole Deshaun Watson contract kind of threw it off to where you're going to get a lot of more fully guaranteed money demands here very soon. Now, the next topic I wanted to talk about was the Cavaliers game last night, where the Cavaliers still doing well in the season and proved they could play with a number of the best teams in the West, including Memphis last night. But the Grizzlies won their 11th in a row, 115-114, in a game where the Cavaliers could have done something a little bit differently towards the end, I think. I think if they'd taken that timeout with 16 seconds remaining after the go-ahead basket by the Grizzlies, then you might have been able to set something up. But the Grizzlies were dialed in on Garland, Darius Garland, on that defensive stand. You get over to LeVert, back to Garland, and Garland tries to go for the three. He gets blocked by Dylan Brooks, and the Cavs are 28-18 today. It's not all negative. I mean, I'm looking at the takeaways here on fearthesword.com, which is one of my favorite sites to look up on Cavs stuff. They talked about the blown opportunity. We all know it. To me, I think the Cavs should have called timeout. It should have been an obvious move there, but that's happened before where JB Bickerstaff has let his guys kind of just play it out a little bit. But and like I says here, there's no guarantee if it works out differently for the Cavs. They do take a timeout, but the odds of a positive outcome probably would have been higher. That being said, Darius Garland playing like an all-star, man. He is playing like an all-star, and it shows. What was it here? 7 of 17 from the field, 5 of 11 for 3 last night, 24 points, 14 assists. That man is playing like an all-star this year, and it may not feel feel like it is that way right now because Donovan Mitchell has had a lot of the public press among the Cavs backcourt this year. But Garland is still developing and still growing as a Cavs veteran and as a guard. And this is very, very good for his development. It's good for the team, especially as his passing game improves. He has this ability where he takes a lot of hero ball shots. And a lot of times with the guys, I'm like, oh no, I don't know about that. But the reason he takes those shots is that he knows he can hit them. We know he can hit them, and he's done that before. Saw it a couple of times last night. You even had Isaac Okoro in the mix, actually having a solid game. 17 points, 6 of 6 from the field, 4 of 4 from 3. Now, I have said to people in the past week that I think Okoro right now is kind of playing for his status among the Cavaliers. With the obvious trade deadline coming up, we might see the Cavs making a potential move to try and fill in some spots here. I'm wondering if Okoro might be involved in that mix. He's only been in the league for a few years now, and the defense is still there from him. The offense, it's still a work in progress. It says here 36% from 3. That's development. I'm wondering if it's going to be enough to keep him on the team for the foreseeable future. Now, Evan Mobley is a guy who is going to be in the Cavs' future, and he is a defensive standout. Last couple of games, maybe not last night, but the last couple of games, he's had some good offensive outings, especially against the Pelicans recently, where he was a dominant paint presence. And once he gets stronger, man, you take this off season to lift some weights, do what Giannis did, you can be dominant in this league. You can do so many good things that I cannot wait to see. This is the big one that I have circled. Was Kevin Love and some of his struggles from the 3-point line so far this season. Now, Love, give him a lot of credit as a guy who signed here after LeBron left, and it looked for a while like the Cavs are going to go nowhere for a bit. And you saw that one game a few years ago where he throws the ball back in frustration, and it just looks like he doesn't want to be here anymore. Then the Cavaliers go from 22 wins to 44 wins in a season. It's like, okay, we're good. We're good again. And Kevin has adapted it from being like one of the main guys in his all-star days to now being like a very good 6th or 7th man. But the problem is some of his 3-point shooting performances this year have not been fantastic. You see here, he did not play a minute of the second half, played 9 in the first half, was 1 of 5 from the 3-point line. Since he's had his thumb injury this year, and there's a good article from Cleveland.com's Chris Fedor that you can look up. He's been having some problems with that thumb and his shooting motion. He's 29% from 3 since the injury. And I have the stats right here. He's currently shooting this year at 34.6% from the 3-point line. That is by far his lowest 3-point shooting total in his career since his second year in the NBA with the Timberwolves. And I'm talking about it in this case where he's played at least, let's say, 30 games. The one year he only played 18 games for the Timberwolves, his penultimate year in Minnesota. He was, what was it here? It was 21.7%, but it's 18 games. I can't really judge it on that. You also had his 22 games with the Cavaliers in the 2018-19 season where he went 36.1%. That is actually his second lowest year with the Cavs. His lowest year was his second season in Cleveland, in which he went 36.0, but this year 34.6. There have been times this year where I see Kevin take a shot and I'm like, oh, because he just hasn't been able to drill them as he has in the past. I'm hoping that he can get something going. I'm hoping he can get back up to double digits. He's only averaging 8.7 points per game this year, which is a far cry from last year where he was at 13.6, and he's still playing this. He was playing the relative amount of minutes that he did from last year, around 22.5 last year, 20.3 this season. It's going to be curious to see if the thumb will be able to heal up enough in time to where he can become a viable part of the Cavaliers bench again, because Jetty Osman is probably your best 6th or 7th man right now. And we'll see where the Cavaliers are able to go from there. Of course, now they've gotten done with that road trip. They had that win against the Pelicans, taking on the Grizzlies. So now you have this upcoming game against Golden State. And Golden State isn't like the juggernaut in the West like they once were. They're 22-22 right now. They're not even the tops in their own division, but that's still a team with talent. I mean, I think they're kind of finding their ways a little bit. You also have the game against Milwaukee coming this Saturday, Tuesday in New York at the Garden. And then after that, you get a couple of breaks. You get Houston at Oklahoma City versus LA. That might be something there. Well, I mean, they haven't been great, but they're at least borderline 500. And then, of course, I had here Miami, Memphis. So you get basically 3 games where it's like, okay, you really need to step up. 2 games where it's like, just go out, do what you need to do. You'll get a victory. Oh, wow. Tickets as low as $5 in Houston. That's crazy. And then we have the Clippers, the Heat, and the Grizzlies. That's an interesting trio of games coming up from the 29th of January all the way to February 2nd. So when we come back, we will have a special guest here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
Hard work is something you're accustomed to. Van Nostrand Young understands that principle. Our access is achieved with organizations like Grange Insurance. Safety and prevention specialists utilize our VanCan assessments process to ensure that you and your colleagues are in the best hands. You want the safest environment for your business, and we can guide you there.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
If you're purchasing a new home, the team at Hartzler's Quality Housing is here to help. Take advantage of record low interest rates to make your new home a reality. Locally owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's Quality Housing has the experience to guide you through the process. You'll find a wide selection of model homes on site to fit any budget. Open 6 days a week just off I-77. You can also visit them online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
And we welcome you back to our final segment here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show, and it's in regards to a recent article that we have up here on BigTimeSportsOhio.com. Now, there was some news that came out from the OHSAA earlier this week that for the first time, the Ohio High School Athletic Association has announced esports will become a promoted and supported state tournament coming this spring. The OHSAA announcing their partnership with esports earlier this week, and the Esports Ohio State Tournament, which is scheduled for May 20th to the 21st at the University of Akron, will be sponsored and promoted by the OHSAA. Winning schools will be presented with trophies in similar styles to the OHSAA's 28 sanctioned sports, such as football, basketball, or baseball. There's even a quote here from OHSAA Executive Director Doug Ute, who says, quote, "Participation in esports is growing very rapidly, and Esports Ohio has been a big part of making it an educational and competitive opportunity for students. The opportunity for these students to be a part of a team and represent their school is very exciting. We are excited to work with an Ohio-based organization that is made up of teachers and school people," unquote. Now, there are a number of schools affiliated with Esports Ohio, including a number of them in our own area. We have them listed here on BigTimeSportsOhio.com: Claymont, Conotton Valley, Highland, Uniontown Lake High School in Stark County, Meadowbrook, Minerva, Newcomerstown, Ridgewood, a number of other schools that will begin their competitive gaming from the end of January to the middle of March. You also have registration deadlines on January 23rd, with the first week of official competitive gaming beginning on January 30th. Now, with that, I did want to take a moment to sit down with a coach of one of our local esports teams. I wanted to get the word out on what competitive gaming is like here in the area and talk about the OHSAA's impact that it will likely have on these teams and the league moving forward. So with that, we go over now to a special guest segment here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. And with that, it is now time for our segment in which we bring in a special guest involving the recent news of the OHSAA sponsoring and promoting the upcoming Esports Ohio State Tournament in May. I am having a sit down now with one of the leaders of one of our area's esports programs. It is Sidney Schloenbach, the coach of Conotton Valley High School's esports program. Ms. Schloenbach, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be able to promote Conotton Valley's esports program here. And we're just as excited as everybody else is that OHSAA was allowed to or able to include esports as one of their official participants.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into specifically the recent news, I wanted to get some backstory in regards to how you became involved with the esports program, or how esports became involved with Conotton Valley High School in general.
So this is actually my second year here at Conotton Valley. I'm one of the music teachers here. And when I was first brought on, I was working with a couple of the faculty members, and they happened to find out that I did like gaming and I loved participating in a lot of the video games that esports offers. And after a couple of discussions, they let me know that they were looking for an esports coach, which was something that was pretty new to me, but also something that was exciting because I know how important video games are to a lot of people and how the esports world is starting to look at it as a positive educational and developmental change agent to help our students participate in a variety of different sports. So when they brought that up as an opportunity for me, I was pretty excited about learning more about it. I have never been an esports coach before, but this was back in 2021. And I knew Conotton Valley had an esports team before, but they were hoping to reinstate it. The biggest benefit to me that I noticed was how excited Conotton Valley was about having the esports program again. And I could truly tell how much the faculty valued it. And that was something that I thought, wow, this is a really great program that I would love to continue with some students here. So that's how everything got started. And then after that, I started doing more research on what it would take to be an esports coach. And I thought, hey, this is something that I can do. I spend a lot of my time doing video games, and I'm sure that having the students stay a couple hours after school to play video games, which might be something that they would just go home and do already, that this would be something that I would get a pretty strong interest in, which that absolutely turned into what it was.
With that, Coach, I mean, what to kind of take me through your own history with gaming? Is this something that you developed in your youth? Is this something that you recently picked up on? And with that, how do you think it translated over to becoming this coach for the Conotton program?
So as a kid, I was always a Nintendo person. I always had a DS. I started with a Game Boy. And it wasn't until I was in college, when the Nintendo Switch came out, that I started getting into more handheld consoles that would be applicable to the TV. I had a PlayStation. But I started doing more gaming opportunities with my friends when I was at college, and it was mostly through Super Smash and Fortnite. I started playing Fortnite recently, and I have a couple other music teacher friends who, it's funny, we get on a couple times a week and we do some squads and we have fun playing Fortnite. So when the faculty members found out that I did that, they were pretty excited and say, hey, maybe you should look into being a coach here. But it was something that I would probably say I really got into when I was in college. And I think it's a good outlet for me, especially with teaching. Sometimes, the days just become so stressful. And I feel like that's what it is for our students as well, just an outlet.
Well, I've got the list right up around here. A number of games that, according to Esports Ohio, a lot of kids participate in. You mentioned a few of them: Fortnite, Overwatch, Clash Royale, even Rocket League. Are those the kind of games that you find yourself most invested in, or are there other particular genres of games that you'll kind of just go home and want to sit down with?
I definitely agree. So the titles that you mentioned were some of the titles I had definitely played before. Some of them I wasn't as comfortable with. I haven't had too much experience with, but I have grown up playing Super Smash, so that was definitely one of them that I knew. And when I was talking to some of my colleagues about, what are some of the other titles that students might be interested in, games like League of Legends, those very PC heavy games, I haven't had a lot of experience with. So I started doing research. I started paying attention to Twitch and watching some sessions and all of that fun opportunities that esports offers in the virtual world. But Rocket League, I started playing a little bit more since I knew that that was going to be one of the games that Conotton Valley students were interested in, and definitely Smash. But those competitive games, I love playing with my friends. But honestly, if I'm looking to just relax, I love going home and playing Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley or those life simulation games. Those ones are the most relaxing for me.
I was gonna say if I had my Switch up here with me, I would have grabbed it, but it's in one of my other rooms. So there you go. I was gonna say, you mentioned Twitch. I mean, obviously, a lot of with gaming nowadays, not only is it just you kind of going home and enjoying yourself, but a lot of people, especially in the esports world, are into streaming. They post it on stuff like Twitch and YouTube. Is there a way that people are able to see your team not only compete in these events, but they can also see the results on some of these platforms?
Oh, absolutely. This is something that's a little bit new to us. We haven't tried it too much, but we've definitely played schools where they will actually stream it out. A lot of the times they will put it out on YouTube, but Twitch is definitely one that other schools will use. And Esports Ohio will stream their regional and state championships whenever we have those big tournaments together. But as far as Conotton Valley's individual matches, that is something that I'm starting to discuss with the students on our interest, on saying, hey, maybe we might be interested in streaming our matches. I think the first season we did it, it was so new to us that we were getting in. We had a lot of people who had never played before, but honestly, I was okay with having them on the team because I really wanted it to be for everybody. So now that I feel like we have a good basis of, we've got a great captain, we've got great systems going on, that I feel like we're really getting to that level where we can start streaming our games, and that would be through YouTube or Twitch. And it's mostly just the streaming services. It's not a lot of, we don't have an auditorium where they're watching us play unless it is during the regionals or states.
Sure. Yeah. Now with that, with the esports partnership now, Esports Ohio partnership now with the OHSAA, what does that mean for you and your team? I mean, being able to be a part of something that's a little more traditional on the side of the physical sports like football, basketball, and baseball.
So the first thing that comes to mind is how excited my team is that OHSAA is recognizing esports as one of their legitimate teams, because the first thing that it does is it kind of legitimates the sport for us. Sometimes people think about it as a club, and I've had that discussion with my students about how similar it is to other athletics in that it promotes teamwork, it promotes the building through practices. It has the same competitions that other sports have. And the fact that we can now be considered an OHSAA sport is very exciting. And it's something that the students can look forward to. If we were to make it to regionals or to states, they would provide us with those trophies that have the OHSAA logos on them. That's something that we could bring back to our school. And it's just exciting that it also allows our school to have more OHSAA athletes. And in more of the atypical sense, we have a lot of students who are on the football teams, the basketball teams, baseball, but we have students who otherwise wouldn't have participated in athletic events. And this really opens up that world for them.
Very, very nice. Now, there has been a kind of a topic of conversation regarding the status of esports as a competitive event along the lines of the sports I previously mentioned. If there is a perspective that you wish to kind of share with people in regards to how esports can be looked at as something that could be as competitive as football or basketball, how would you describe that perspective to other people?
I would look at it, and similar to what I mentioned before, the fact that the sport still promotes teamwork. It still has us following a consistent practice schedule and allows the students to see their progress from day one to the end of the season. Again, some of them have never played these sports before, and that's pretty similar to the typical sports that you see. If you're just starting football for the first time, you're going to see that progress by the end of the season. And that's exactly what esports offers. It has us competing competitively against other schools. We are getting that reward of, we did fantastic in this match. We were working together. We were listening to each other. We were following what our captains were having us do. So we were able to be successful. Or maybe we need to go back and look at these different strategies, and we can strategize together as a team. I think that really kind of helps it go very similar to other sports. So when you're looking at it that way, even though it's not a traditional physical sport, it does definitely allow us to have those opportunities. And I think there's a benefit to it with it not having that traditional physical athleticism associated with it, because it kind of offers it up as a wide variety to students. So if students might not have the right build to be a basketball player, it doesn't really matter how you're built to play esports, as long as it's something that you're willing to give your best for. It widens that opportunity for everybody.
You kind of made me think of something there, where in regards to the physical aspects of sports compared to something like esports, are there any particular strategies or processes that you kind of have your team go through when it comes to preparing for matches and upcoming tournaments?
There are definitely strategies when it comes to working together. Sometimes that can be the most difficult thing. When we have our Rocket League and Fortnite team going, it is extremely important that they are listening to each other, because sometimes we go off on the other side of the court and we're saying, hey, I thought you were supposed to be guarding this goal, and then the other team was able to score it, for example, in Rocket League. And that can be definitely a little bit complicated. So it's very important for us to work on the strategy of communication. And then there are actually a couple companies that are working with Esports Ohio that allow students to, and this might sound new to someone who's not familiar with the electronic sports world, but work on different dexterity things. If you're not someone who's used to playing the video games where you're controlling the camera angle and you're controlling your player movement at the same time, that can be something that's very complicated. And these organizations are providing exercises, believe it or not, to practice that dexterity. And so that's not something that we have done yet at Conotton Valley, but I think the more we advance our teams like Fortnite and Rocket League, which are the two that we've been focusing on, as well as Smash, that we might look into one of those organizations to help with that strategy. There's a whole bunch of strategies that just like other sports, they're going to help us. And if we don't work together, then they're going to harm us.
And finally, with your development of the program throughout these last few years, are there particular names or kind of moments between your team that you think that in which case you might have been really proud of them or you think should be showcased?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the names that come to mind are our team captains, for example. The past year, we had one of our students, Gage Markwell. He was the captain of our Smash team. And he worked really well with everybody in the fall on saying, hey, you know, your strengths with this character really allow you to apply this move in this situation. And it was really fantastic watching our student leaders, such as Gage, being able to say, I'm working with a variety of different students here. I'm working with our students that are very comfortable playing, and I'm working with our beginners. And it's just extremely rewarding being a coach and a teacher, watching your students work together in that way. Of course, we have all of our past captains that have worked so fantastically with our students. Some of them are rather high-level players who are even considering going into gaming in their college career, whether that be applying for scholarships, or continuing that in their major, whether that be video game production or the wide variety that they offer. And then it's always rewarding watching our school specifically, which is a very small school when you compare it to everybody else that's in our region. We're in the Northeast Ohio region here. And we are playing against other schools where their class size is well above 300 kids. And our class size is significantly smaller. We're talking in the 30s, if not less. So we don't have tryouts to be on our eSport team. We take who we can to provide that opportunity for them. And it's very rewarding watching us go against these big schools and really holding our own out there. We were playing one of the founding Esports Ohio teams last semester, and we got a pretty good shout out from them. They said, you know, Conotton Valley is pretty new to this, but they're doing really well. And that was very exciting for our team to hear. You know, sometimes when we're playing against the bigger schools, they might kick our butts out there, or maybe we do really, really well. But hearing that compliment from another school, especially one of the founders of Esports Ohio, it's very rewarding.
Coach Schloenbach, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me here today on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Best of luck to you and best of luck to your gamers here throughout this upcoming season.
Thank you so much. We're very excited about the opportunities that OHSAA are providing to us, and we're looking forward to a great start of our spring season.
Special thanks to Sidney for joining us here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. And thank you for tuning in to this episode. Whether you were listening or watching, we always appreciate it. And we'll be back next week. I'll be back next week at least. Mitch will be back a little bit later. But in the meantime, I want to remind you guys of all of our social platforms. Obviously, you have at BTS Ohio on Twitter, Big Time Sports Ohio on Facebook and Instagram. You have at Mitch Spinell on Twitter and everywhere else, at Mitchell Balla everywhere else. And of course, you can find us on BigTimeSportsOhio.com. Now, as for this is interesting. I've never done Mitchell Balla's segment before where he does the fact of the day, but I do have a fact listed up here, and this one was interesting to me. There are more public libraries in the United States than there are Starbucks or McDonald's. And if you were to go to a place like Seattle or San Francisco, you would not believe that would be true, because I saw a Starbucks in San Francisco literally, like no joke, it felt like every 2 or 3, maybe 2 to 4 blocks, I was finding some sort of Starbucks in a building or on its own merit. But yeah, I could see that happening. And of course, McDonald's, even though it's been around for 80 years, still not as many public libraries, still not as many as there are public libraries in the United States. That is according to news.usc.edu, University of Southern California News, basically. And that is a report from 5 years ago. Thank you so much for listening or watching to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.